Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. Often, what I do when I'm trying to find people to interview is I look for articles. One of the places I go is Psychology Today. And I found a very interesting article about a subject that I've been interested in quite some time. The author of the article calls it metacognition. It's more commonly known as thinking about thinking. But anyway, she's here today to talk to us about it. Her name is Kristen Carter, MS. She's the founder of Design for Fitness LLC and has been working in fitness and nutrition for over 30 years. She is also the creator of the popular Design for Fitness Health and Fitness blog and the Psychology Today Health and Human Nature blog. Kristen, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
So the first thing I got to ask is your specialty is in health and nutrition. How do you come to write for Psychology Today?
Well, because health and nutrition has so much to do with psychology. Some people just put it into the motivation category, but there's so much more to it than that drives people to be healthy or make choices that are healthy or make choices that are not healthy. So I would say that health and fitness starts up here in your brain.
I used to watch this show. God, I can't remember the name of it now. It wasn't The Biggest Loser. It was by this guy, Chris Powell. But it was to help people, get in shape to lose weight. And a lot of it was focusing on the mental aspects of it, on changing the habits of thinking. And, as somebody who's put in decades of work on change, this topic is very important to me because the self-improvement enterprise entails being able to look at your own thinking, assess it, and then change it. There's a philosopher, I don't know if you've heard of him, named Harry Frankfurt, and he's written about desires and second-order desires. And the second-order desires are the things that you want to want, basically.
No.
But you don't want them. But so the object in my mind has always been to get those and make them my first order desires. But if somebody is to ask you to summarize what metacognition is, and it doesn't have to be a brief summary, whatever it takes, it takes. But how would you explain metacognition?
Right. So you're correct in the beginning there. Is thinking about how you think is basically the one phrase that most people use with it. There's obviously much more to it than that. And to scroll back a little bit, they always say that humans are the only creatures on this planet who have that ability. We can step back and analyze ourselves, and it's an excellent thing to be able to do, but it also is something that you can learn. It doesn't come automatically. Now, the person who started thinking about it back in the 1979, I believe it was, he coined the phrase metacognition. He was an educational psychologist, and so he was thinking about how can we get people to learn better, have better learning styles, so that you have a lifetime of being curious and a lifetime of being able to analyze how you learn. Like, did I just, so I screwed up and something happened. and, do you have the ability to step back and go, now, why? Does that mean I'm a failure? Does that mean I stink at being on a diet or I stink at math? No, it just means you need a different strategy if you have that metacognition on board. So that's just kind of a long answer there.
So the first block to me would, well, or at least one of the first would be if I look at my thoughts, I take a distance approach and I look and I don't like what I see. Right. So I mean, this takes some real self-honesty, right, in order to be able to do this.
It does. Right. And self-awareness, which, self-awareness takes effort. It takes effort. And you're right. Being honest with yourself is a really great skill to have. Um, there's also a thing, here's a thing that happens. It's called confirmation bias, where many of us get stuck in the same kind of thoughts all the time, and we don't explore other thoughts. So say you're in a conversation with somebody and you're trying to get your point across and they're trying to get their point across. Sometimes it comes to yelling and screaming because nobody will say, well, wait a minute, how did you come to that conclusion? Or, gee, maybe you're right. Or you could have a point there. That kind of thing. And many people do that. Many people do that. So that can really get in your way. Also, just your upbringing and your schooling. You may have teachers back in the day that said, well, sorry, but you're just terrible at history or remembering facts or something. And then from then on, you're like, okay, forget it. I'll go do something else. So yeah, those kinds of things can definitely get in the way.
What you just said about the history stuff, or but the larger principles when you come to believe things about yourself. I've come across quite a few people in my life who will say to me, for instance, I just don't like to read. It's too hard. When I start to read, I can only go for a couple minutes and then I get distracted. I can't do it. And I remember when I first started to read, it wasn't something that I loved doing either. It's like lifting weights. You don't bench press, you're this huge amount right off the bat. You have to build yourself up. Reading is something similar. You have to train yourself to do it. That notion of losing focus happens to everybody I've ever met. It's not unique to an individual, but if a person keeps telling themselves that over and over and over again, then they're deterred from ever taking part in the reading. So
Right.
how would you, if somebody came and that was their their MO, I can't do this, I don't like to do it, what, and especially in relation to the metacognition, I don't like to look at myself, I have a very difficult time doing it, how would you instruct them to overcome that hurdle? And more importantly, not more importantly, but at least as important, how would you instruct them to go about it, about the actual analysis of their own thinking?
Okay. I think, first of all, people need to be aware that that can happen, that a lot of people get stuck in their own thoughts. In fact, I recently was on a webinar or seminar where the psychologist who's been around for a very long time said, we have about 20,000 thoughts per day, which I don't know how they figured
Wow.
that out, but 20,000. And he said, most of them are the same ones we had yesterday.
Makes
So,
sense.
and he went on to say that a lot of them are negative, right? So we do glom onto those thoughts of, I'm no good at this, I can't do that. And that comes naturally to everybody. So I think an awareness of that, just as a starting point, is really important. And I have a question here you can ask people, which is, are you aware that we all have habits around how we think? We really do. Our brains are designed to be efficient and to help us react right away if something's going on. And so it tends to block out a lot of noise. And fair enough, that's good. However, it doesn't work in our favor when we're trying to learn something new or combat the thoughts about ourselves that tell us we can't learn something new. So the other thing would be, you could ask yourself, how difficult do you think this task is going to be? Have you ever thought about that? Is it beyond your reach? Is it, something that you hate? Is it, how come other people can do it? Question. And where did this thinking come from? Right. So it does. And so once you do all that, you have the option to change your attitude. And that is the key. You need to change your attitude about your approach to whatever it is you're saying you can't do. A lot of times, in my career with people who say, oh, I just hate to exercise. I'm just not for me. I was always picked last in gym class and I'm a klutz and all that stuff.
Right here.
Oh, yeah. So the way to reframe that is to say, well, what kinds of things do you do now? Do you move around? I bet you don't sit in your chair all day. I bet you like to go outside sometimes. I bet you go to the mall and walk around sometimes. I bet you like to go walk with friends, maybe. So you can get that person thinking about it in a different way. Like exercise isn't, okay, I got to do 30 minutes of high intensity, whatever. You can just gently bring them down into the fact that they're already doing something. And then they can go, yeah, well, that is in my wheelhouse, right? And it's not so bad.
You mentioned that thinking is largely habitual. So being that that's the case, if I start paying attention to my thinking and I decide to change it, it doesn't just magically, because I make that decision, go away. I actually basically, like, the analogy I would use is to like manually shifting. I have to actually, step in and alter the thoughts and do it over and over again until I establish new habits of thinking. Is that a good way to put it? I guess would be my question.
Yeah, that's an excellent way to put it. One of my colleagues, Michelle Segar, she's a motivation expert. And what she says is you can use metacognition because she says we all have it, we can develop it and we all have it. In situations like, say, you are facing, say you're on a diet. So you're restricted and you're thinking you can't eat this and that. And you end up at a buffet for dinner with a bunch of friends. And you can either say, a lot of people say to themselves, well, I'm just going to let myself go here and I'll get, back on my diet tomorrow. Whereas you can you can reframe that and go, now just a minute, how can I make some decent choices here while still and keeping my goals in mind, while still enjoying the experience? You can just think about it differently. You do have to step back and make the effort to do that. And it does take practice. It really does. It doesn't just come to you out of the, magic wand. It just doesn't happen that way. But you can start with knowing that you can do that. You can do that. So excuse me, I'm coming back from a cold here. Yeah,
it seems to be going around. A lot of people I know are under the weather.
Truly. Yeah.
So what how do I phrase the question I want to ask here? What are some of the common problems that people have with their thinking? And I want to address it to a few areas. So first, let's take fitness, right? Physical fitness. Even back a little bit, let's go to dieting, right? Not a crash diet, but actual altering in the way that a person views food and has their relationship with food. What are some of the common obstacles that metacognition helps to solve when it comes to the eating aspect of fitness?
Okay, so one of it is just like the scenario that I mentioned. The other, now, here's a chance for me to plug my book.
Yes, put it away.
Which is called The End of Try Again. So my book takes you out of the realm of dieting and puts you into the realm of changing your relationship with food and how you think about food. And so it starts with asking yourself some questions or having somebody else ask you those questions, like, why do you eat? Is it for fun? Is it because your family's always done it that way? Is it for nutrition? Is it, um, are you a protein guy because you're trying to build muscle? Why? Why? So, and we go from there saying, well, what I do is I promote the Mediterranean style of eating. It's not a diet. It's a lifestyle. So that so the other thing about that is it takes time. So many people, when they go on a diet, they want to jumpstart, or I just don't want to lose 10 pounds and then I'll see what I'm going to do, right? So there's no plan. There's no plan to change at all. There's a plan to follow a diet. And what do you learn when you follow a diet? You learn that you hate it.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yes.
So real change comes gradually and with more effort and more scrutiny. Like, what you become more aware of when you're eating and why you're eating and what you're eating. And in my book, we start with just getting people to slow down what they're eating and then pay attention. And then we start with, we also add in like how much protein are you getting at each meal? You need protein at each meal so that you don't crash and burn. So, and then each time there's like a one chapter on protein and where it is and how to do it. And then the person themselves makes the choice. It's not me telling them, you need to go get a chicken breast and have that for lunch every day. It's you figuring out how you're going to do that and what appeals to you. And it would be the same thing with exercise. So, you figure out what appeals to you and what you can do and what you can do again and again and again. So that requires metacognition. So that requires you to do some analysis of your strategy and go, well, wait a minute, maybe my strategy for losing weight just isn't the right one. It doesn't work. I've tried it before, it doesn't work. So why am I doing it again? Right? Because maybe this time it'll work. Well, no, this time it's not going to work.
See, this idea of metacognition it's a principle that's applicable to a vast array of concretes. So what I want to do now is kind of demonstrate. You just gave us the first point and how it applies to eating, but I want to take a couple examples so people can actually see how this works in a variety of things. So the next thing I'm going to stay in your wheelhouse, exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So if the way that I remember when I first started exercising when I was, I think, 17, and I loved it. And I told a friend of mine, I absolutely love doing this. I'm going to do it forever. And he said, yeah, the problem is eventually it just becomes like going to school and you're going to hate it. But the thing is, that's the way he's viewing exercise, right? Like it's going to school, it's tedious, it's boring. Mm-hmm. So how would you apply it to somebody that needs to start working out?
Okay. So I'll tell you a story. Somebody that I worked with a while ago, and her mother actually called me and wanted me to help her lose weight because she was getting married. And this person, I would say, okay, we're going to go for a walk while we talk about this. And she would go half a block and say, I'm done. My back hurts. My feet hurt. I can't do this. I have to go to the bathroom. But we kept at it. Like, so if she wanted to talk to me, she had to walk. So what I'm saying is, and now she goes to the gym. She works out. She goes to the park and walks around. And so it eventually the light bulb went off, and she's like, "Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I can do it." Um, now, excuse me. What was I going to say about that? So I'm done with that right now. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, it's okay. Like when I think about working out, because I have a very busy schedule,
Yeah.
I simply cannot devote an hour a day going to the gym. It's not feasible for the way that I live.
Mhm.
But I can do 15 minutes a day of fairly intense exercise.
Yeah.
So it's not ideal. I could do better, but I don't. I've learned not to. What's the word I'm looking for? Like compare myself to some alternate me that's working out for an hour. Instead, I just say, look, I'm doing the 15 minutes. I'm keeping. I get my heart pumping. I'm keeping my muscles toned. I'm doing okay. So I've altered the way that I'm viewing the whole exercise experience. That it's going to take so much time out. It's 15 minutes. I can fit 15 minutes here. I can fit it there. I don't set aside a time every day that I have to do it because my schedule changes from day to day. For
Right.
instance, like, I want to interview you. You can do 12 o'clock. So that's when I have to schedule it. So I can't have my workouts regularly scheduled, say, for 12 because it could get
Mhm.
interrupted. So I know every day I've just got to find a 15-minute segment to do it. But viewing that way allows me to do it. I don't beat myself up for doing it for such a short period of time, and it works. Okay, so one more area I want to talk to you about because I know you'll know about it, and I know about it. Writing a book. It's such a daunting task, right? So how does your idea of using metacognition help with that, with such a daunting task?
Wow. Okay. So when I first started out, I went for some help with how to write a book, um, for a nonfiction book. And by the way, now I'm writing a fiction murder mystery. So um, it's pretty fun. And even the blogs that I write, you you can use metacognition in your favor by doing a mind map, a brain dump. So you give yourself permission to just say you can use post-it notes or a great big piece of paper and a marker and just write down stuff that you're thinking about. Or you might write down your main goal, which is okay, write a book. And so what does that mean? You can little arrows off of it and go, well, what does that mean? When am I going to do that? What's it going to be about? Who can help me? Um, how can I find the time? Um, and and just keep going like that, and then you can do the same thing with ideas for your book. So what do I want to tell people? What is it that's most important? How can I organize it? What do I want to make sure is included? What's the flow, possibly? Sometimes, and you can give yourself permission to just start. I mean, a lot of times I just go ahead and start, and then it kind of does itself, almost like the flow just goes there. Um, but it doesn't unless you start. So, um, the book I'm writing, the murder mystery I'm writing now, is the same way. Like so the books I wrote before about health and fitness are short. I did that on purpose because I wanted people to be able to just read them really, quickly, not have to spend a lot of hours slogging through a book about, this and that and this and that. It's like, here's what you do, and here's why. But so with the murder mystery, it's completely different. You have to go on all kinds of stuff. So, but again, I just went ahead and got going without knowing how it was going to end. And it's working out. So, yeah.
I like how you put that without knowing how it's going to end. I've authored two books. One I co-authored, one I wrote on my own. And I know that if I start out and I say, okay, I want to write a 300-page book, this is what it's about, I'm going to be lost.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
simply can't go from here to there. But what I can do is I can set an outline. Okay, what are the things that I want to talk about in this book?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I make an outline. And once I have the topics, then I say, okay, what order should they go in? And I organize them and I put them in order. And then I say, okay, now I got to take notes just on each thing. I got to read up on each little topic. And I would do that. And now I have my notes. And now I say, okay, now I can write on this topic. This chapter can be written, or even this section of a chapter.
Mhm.
And when I break it down that way, when I stop my mind from just thinking of everything has to get done at once, when I do that, I'm able to do it. And then, after a year, the book is written. It's done because I was able to not focus on everything. And for my mind, the way my mind works, this helps with virtually everything. Because if I think of everything I have to do in a day, I'm overwhelmed.
Mhm.
So I have to stop myself and say, okay, what's next? What do I need to do now? And when I do it that way, I don't overwhelm myself, and I get a lot done. Now, I worked on, okay, go ahead. No, you can
The other
comment.
thing about that is you give yourself permission to make mistakes and go back and correct them or revise. And any book probably gets revised like 5 times before it comes out, right? So you automatically know that whatever you're writing can be changed and will be changed, and you got to be comfortable with that. You don't, then you're not feeling like you have to be perfect. Just get it out there, see how it fits with your other ideas. It may not fit where you thought it was going to, and then you want to switch things around. So giving yourself permission to revise is another one, is another really huge, which involves metacognition, like right. Hey, wait a minute, what did I learn by writing it this way? But wait a minute, it's not doing it for me. It doesn't flow right. And of course, an editor can help too.
Sure, sure. So the biggest task that personally I've ever undergone was to change my character. Right. I was 21 years old. I was in prison. I had a 33-year sentence, and at some point, I decided I needed to change. So I needed to do a few things. Right. The first thing is, what are the results I'm getting in life that I don't like? And why am I getting these results? What is the thinking that's leading to these results? So I have to look at that. Then I had to say, okay, well, what do I want to be? And what are the type of thoughts that I'm going to have to implement if I wanted to become this person? So now I identify the thinking that I'm already doing that's leading to the negative results. I've decided on the type of thoughts that I need to replace those with. And then when I get those thoughts, I'd say to myself, okay, I'm watching, all the time I'm thinking, this is the thinking that's leading me here. And I would try to implement and change the thought. But all along doing this, I found that actions are much easier to change than the thinking that gives rise to them, right?
Mm.
Because I might be thinking, say, a violent thought, but that doesn't mean I have to act on it. It was much easier to just not do the violent act, or not do drugs, or not gambling, and at the same time continue to replace that thinking. But my point is that it all starts, or I don't know if starts even the right word. It's all deeply integrated with the ability to look at one's own thinking, if from afar, just sit back and watch what's going on, in understanding how these things need to change and what you want to change them to. And I think that pattern will probably, well, I'm very confident actually that it would go across circumstances, across concretes, whether it be eating, exercising, writing a book, gaining up the courage to ask a girl on a date, whatever.
Yeah.
I know I didn't leave a question. I should have asked a question, but I just ended. I was kind of hoping you'd come in. It's okay. But ultimately, what my question, I guess, would be is, am I describing this accurately in your view?
Yes, I would say you are. And I would add also, because that kind of reminds me of what happens in therapy. Um, and people who succeed at therapy, um, one way or another, come to that way of thinking. Like, just a minute, the way I think now is hurting me, or it isn't necessarily correct. I mean, my thinking isn't necessarily correct. I do not need to act on it. So that's what a lot of happens in behavioral therapy these days. So they ask, it's about asking the right questions at the right time to get somebody to go away. Oh, and but a lot of people, you have that skill. You can do it yourself, or you may know there's a time when you need help with it, right?
So I'm going to include with this episode a link to your book. But where else can people find you?
Okay, I'm at designforfitness.com. There, I've been blogging for 12 years about health and fitness. And then I have on Psychology Today, I think it's 5 years now, I've been doing the health and human nature blog. So if you go onto Psychology Today, you can just search my name, Kristen Carter, and up will come, my latest blogs
A lot of good stuff, yeah.
there, which I really enjoy doing that because I feel like there's so much to it that people don't realize when they want to make a decision or a strategy change or a life change or anything like that. So,
And what is the name of your latest book?
The End of Try Again. So, and it's on Amazon and it comes, well, it doesn't, okay, Amazon won't let you do this, but there's also a workbook. So you can't buy, they don't come together. You have to buy them separately. But the workbook will give you the how-to, the weekly or biweekly steps to take, how to do it, what to think of, what to do next, and in a certain order. So the original book kind of lays the groundwork for that, and then the workbook just lays it out in terms of things you can take action on.
Okay, excellent. Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're busy. Check out Kristen's book. Check out her blog. Like I said, a link to the book will be provided with the episode.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Liebowitz. Till next time.